Okay. I'll call the work session of the city council to order. And we are joined tonight by Councilmember Parizek, Mayor ProTem McFerren, Councilmember Shiltz, and Councilmember Martinez. Kind of the format, I know that folks from the community have questions as well. And so the format that I'd like to do for the work session is have Lenny Larson, our engineer, go over his report to us, and anything that's added by city staff to the report. And then I'll turn it to the council to ask questions. And I want all of you who came from the community to be able to ask questions as well. So we'll do that. The next step, allow you to ask questions. So with that, Lenny.
Yeah. So thank you, Mayor. I will try and keep the overview quick and simple. So if you have questions throughout, just feel free to ask. Really, I wanted to go over the goal of this was really to evaluate the existing pool facility, see really the condition of the existing structure, the equipment, the bathhouse, the pump house, try and determine what may be the leak that's occurring with the pool, and then figure out what those costs would be. And as you're doing the improvements there, it's not so much doing a big improvement project to the pool, it's really getting it up to codes and compliance, and also getting it so it can extend the life of that pool. The one thing that I will mention is it is an older pool, so there are quite a few deficiencies. I remember going to it when I was a little kid, so I do have memories of the pool. Yeah. So, but we'll go ahead and get started. And then some of the things, I guess, before I get started, some of the things that we've discussed, like storm shelter and everything, if those are things that you want to look into a little more, that's not included as this, because this is really focused on just the existing conditions of the pool facility itself. So as we all know, it's the Kimberly Park pool. The first section that I'll go through is the bathhouse. And I'm just going to go quick. The noted deficiencies were the roof. It does need, it's lived its useful life and does need to be replaced. And right now we're assuming an R30 insulation for underneath the roof structure or the roof itself. Exterior doors, really the main or the overhead door, we recommend replacing the frame and the door of the overhead door, and then the other doors finishing and repainting for those two. Windows would be around the perimeter, would be installing windows and then having some film on the windows so natural light can enter the building. But there's 6 of them that we would be looking at. Yep.
Lenny, and Brittany, we'll be posting this report.
Yeah.
And so I see people that are taking notes, which is fine, but we'll also make this available. When will it be available online?
Both the work session and council videos will be uploaded tomorrow to our YouTube channel.
After tomorrow, anyway. So
yeah.
Please continue.
Yeah, and if you want to, and then if there are any questions or any adjustments that need to be made, we will be taking it back and making those additions or revisions, and then issuing the final report. So right now we're at the final draft stage. Exterior walls, there is a little bit of work that needs to be done with the exterior walls, and then we would be recommending cleaning them and making those corrections to the exterior walls. It's an old concrete masonry unit block wall, so that would be and then a ceiling after we got done with the cleaning and the repairs need to be made. Soffits and fascia underneath the roof structure, we would be recommending to replace the soffits and fascia for the building. And as far as finishes go, those aren't finalized. We just have broad costs that would cover the types of finishes that are available. Interiors of the bathhouse, really the lock, I'll call it the bath areas and the shower areas. The biggest thing there that needs to be done is make it ADA accessible. So that's the biggest need there, is to be reconfiguring each one of those, the women's and the men's locker rooms, our shower areas, and making it so it has our ADA compliance. So that's the biggest code requirement there. Interior finishes, we would be recommending to repaint the interiors, and then on the floor, putting, especially in the shower areas where the kids are and everything, putting a non-slip coating underneath the floor to protect from slippage and those, which it currently does not have. And then casework in the office area, replacing the casework, so. Mechanical for it, we would be recommending, replacing the water heater in the bathhouse, replacing the ventilation systems because they've reached their, useful age. And then the plumbing fixtures, and that's really part of making it ADA accessible, in the bathrooms and the shower rooms. Electrical, the power distribution box, we would be recommending to replace that. As you can see in the photo, it's pretty corroded, so it's lived its useful life, and then replacing the new light or the lighting within the bathhouse with everything else. And that would be upgrading to LED fixtures if wanted. The exterior, the sidewalk leading in, so we would consider the main entrance to the pool is coming from the parking lot, just to the north of here. And we would have to put in 2 ADA compliant stalls in the parking lot, and also replace the sidewalk going out, leading out to them, because a good chunk of it does not meet ADA compliant. So we would have to redo that sidewalk leading into it. And then also, as you can see in the photo, we happened to be out there when it was raining pretty badly. So you can see there's quite a bit of stormwater that pools in front of the entrance. So we would be addressing the stormwater drainage as part of that, getting the site upgraded to meet ADA compliance. Do you want me to stop there and kind of go to the back and go through the costs associated with those improvements, or do you want me to kind of go through the entire
I
bit?
think everyone's curious about the cost, so
So-
I would like that.
So this is just for the bathhouse, and the site associated with the bathhouse. To do those improvements, total cost would be $617,630, with a construction cost of roughly $520,000, with the remaining being soft costs of the project. So. And I can go into more detail if you'd like with each individual item, but just trying to keep it high level for now.
For the $520,000 in construction costs.
Yeah, and that's including some contingency, just a rough budget number, just because of unknowns.
Supplies.
That's the supplies and the labor to do the work. So, yeah. We, as part of the cost that we have for the individual items, we're including labor costs as part of that. So you get a full picture. Otherwise, you would be tagging on quite a bit to that cost that I just gave you. Pool and pool deck is probably the biggest decision of the project. As we all know, the pool leaks. The pool structure itself is greater than 80 years old. Lots of cracking. There's lots of voids underneath it. We gave 2 options. The first option I would highly recommend not doing. You can do it for a very short period of time, but I wouldn't. That's not a long-term solution. That's more just to get by. And that's doing crack sealing. As part of the crack sealing, we would be doing a fillable grout to try and fill up as much of that void space underneath the pool structure as you can. And that would be an ongoing maintenance cost every year, just to make sure you're getting those cracks resealed, because if you're not doing that every year, it's going to just continue to erode the problem that you already have. So that would be $55,000 a year just to continue doing the crack sealing and everything. And that's not addressing anything else that we need to do with the pool deck and the pool facility itself. We did look at trying to just do replacing the pool bottom, but how it was constructed originally, you would have to replace the walls too, because the walls don't have the structural integrity to take out the bottom. They're tied together too much that you would have to replace the walls too. So the second option that we have, which would really be replacing the pool structure itself, would be to also get rid of the wading pool and look at doing a 0 entry pool altogether. And those are things that we could discuss, but right now that's first plus. But it would be replacing that entire pool structure. That's separate from the pool deck around. Regardless of what option you go with, the pool deck is going to have to be addressed if you start doing improvements, because there's a lot of areas of that pool deck that don't meet ADA compliance. And once you touch one spot of the pool deck, you're going to have to be pretty much doing the whole thing because you have such a flat area that you have to really replace the entire thing and do the grading around it to be able to do it. And then one of the issues is the storm drains in the pool decking. There's a lot of void from the ground penetration radar report that Terracon did a few years back. There's a lot of voids under there, so we'd be wanting to replace that and then doing subgrade preparation and stabilization to the soil below it, and then bringing in fill that needed to be, because there are areas where you can see that the pool decking has started to settle, especially along those pool drains, the storm drains in the pool decking. The cost of, I'll get to that. The other part would be the dive well. We would be not a whole lot with that. That's one good news. That would be more performing regular maintenance. But as far as condition goes, the slides are not the slide. I apologize. The ladders and the diving board, nothing at this time to note that would need to be addressed at this time associated with those. So just making sure you're providing regular maintenance there. Pool slide, we would recommend to the slide surface has normal wear, but nothing in major deterioration. We have seen that there has been some minor repairs made. However, the biggest thing would be is to prepare and repaint the stairs along it, the program, or prolong its useful life while you're doing all this work. And then repair the underside of the slide. There's an area where there was some damage done to the slide itself. I misspoke. The first part was the dive well, not the diving board. The diving board we would need to replace as we're doing the work, and that's mainly because it doesn't meet current code compliance. So we'd have to replace the diving board, and that would be a topic of discussion of that piece. Mechanical, because of all the leaking and everything, we would recommend replacing the main drain from the pump house to the pool. And that's part of the cost that would need to be done regardless of if you did the short-term fixes or the long-term fixes. And then the other piece would be is the slide pump and piping. We would recommend replacing that because that there's some issues with that's taken place over the last couple years. Pool deck lighting, we would recommend as you're going through all this, updating the lighting out there and going with a more cost-effective lighting, but as far as more efficient lighting out there. But that's something that you could discuss. That's not a code compliance or anything. That would just be something that as you're doing all this work, we would recommend getting updated at that time because it is older lighting that's out there. Like I mentioned earlier, the pool decking, and the fence, just because you're having to replace all the pool decking, the fence is going to have to be brought down. So it would be really replacing the entire pool deck area. And that's mainly so you can meet ADA compliance because there's many locations that don't meet ADA compliance. And then the fence, as you're doing that, we would be replacing the fencing at that time because you're having to take that down to do the rest of the work regardless. All right. So to get to the cost of this piece, if you did the short-term option, but like I mentioned, it's going to be probably $55,000 a year. And also there's going to be a point in time somewhere within the next 5 to 10 years, depending on how long that lasts. I would imagine you're going to have to do something because it's lived its useful life, and as leaks go with water, they only get worse with time. So crack sealing, it will do some preventative damage to it, but over time it will eventually get to the point where you do have to do something with that. So but if you were to replace the entire pool structure along with the other items that were noted, it would be $2.9 million. To do just a smaller aspect of it with the $55,000 annually, which could grow depending on how much those cracks grow and everything. But right now we have it estimated roughly at $55,000 annually. You'd be at $802,000, and that's more just a short-term option at that point. So, and then the pool equipment building, replacing the roof, exterior doors. You would be replacing the metal doors, frames, and hardware along with the exterior wall, there are locations in the CMU wall there that need to be repaired on the pump house, which is the building on the north side of the pool. Electrical room, we would be replacing the essentially the gypsum in there and putting in a fire rated gypsum and moisture resistant gypsum in that room. Filter room, walls, floor and ceiling. As far as the walls, floor and ceiling, you would just be performing regular maintenance. So there's not really any items that need to be done with those aspects right this second. And that would be the interior piece. The exhaust system, we would have to replace the exhaust fan and intake louver. Pool equipment, so the boiler, pump, the piping, chlorine, the chlorine disinfectant system, and also the autofill valve. We would recommend replacing all of that, and that's also including the filtration system too. As they're at the point of where they need to be replacing with the chlorine system while you're replacing everything else. Not saying you have to replace that, but I'd update it with everything else and get them a better chlorine feed system than you currently have. Power distribution, in this building, doesn't look like it did in the bathhouse, so we don't have anything there. It's just performing regular maintenance at this time. Same with the interior lighting. Exterior lighting, we would recommend replacing the third fixture to match the others out there to provide better site lighting. And then the sidewalk, this is something that you don't have to do, but if you were doing these improvements, I would recommend doing an 8-inch thick sidewalk that's 8 foot wide, so you have access to get the chemicals up to the building, so you're not having to haul them around. So it would be installing a sidewalk from that little drive that comes up from the road there. So this comes out to be a total cost of $385,450. So total would be just shy of 4 million if you're doing all the repairs over there. So and at that point, I hate to say it, but you could look at doing a new pool facility that would be, it might not be as big, because you do have a decent sized pool structure itself for the community, but you could do one for that price or a little more. And there's things that you could do to increase the price here, but I wouldn't recommend doing that. If you were going to invest more money than what this outlines, I would recommend to be looking into a new facility at this time. It's just a lot of money to spend for an older pool.
Keeping with what I recommended, any comments from staff to what Dominguez said. Yeah. All right, questions from the council?
I mean, I just thought I saw Nick.
Yeah, I see the girls in the 60s.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because I remember that was about how much ours cost the first time we did the study.
What was that?
$4 million for a new.
Feasibility study was anywhere between $3 to $6 million, depends on the site.
We had different fund options.
I mean, besides Kelly and I were the ones that have worked the pool the longest that are still alive. So 20 years, Kelly longer than that, so we kind of got to see it all. I've stood in front of different councils for 12 years talking about the pool, and this is where we're at.
Yeah.
I don't think any other community would try and fight to just band-aid a 96-year-old pool. And that's my opinion as a community member and also as a former staff member for the Parks and Rec. We tried as hard as we could to put money into it, and when you reseal things, those find other areas.
Correct.
And we have fixed some of those major cracks that we are talking about, that Lynch was talking about. And we were said it lasts 7 years. It lasted 2 years. It lasted 1 year. So
That's what I was saying. We're probably getting a year.
it finds spots. It always has. We redid the baby pool a couple, like 4 years ago. I think we spent, that alone was 30,000 or something like that just to redo that baby pool. I also think we need something that's going to draw people here. We are trying to grow as a community. I don't think our current pool offers those things that people are looking for the amenities. Yes, it's a pool, but all these other places that are able to add new things are just not, we just don't have those that we're trying to get to. And that's what that one feasibility study that I had, it had kind of all the bells and whistles, things that other communities didn't have maybe. And you can go to Kyoto, they just built a new pool, I think 3 or 4 years ago. Smaller, it's 3 million, and it's just a pool, basically. So we're looking at 4 million just to fix what we currently have. And so we also don't want to build too small. You don't know how, if we're going to grow to 8,000 people, and then we won't be able to accommodate the growth. So a lot of factors are playing, but kind of what I got.
Other questions from the council?
I think one other thing is that, is there grants out there that could help us out? Over
Very
this hard
few
period?
and limited. For pools, there's some private ones that you'll be able to go after, and I can share those. It's not gonna be so much for repairs that they're going to give grants for. It's gonna be more for newer. But there's gonna be some restrictions with them too, but there are some, but they're not gonna, I hate to say it, make a big dent in the overall cost of the pool. So the big thing is really working with community members and everything and going through fundraising, but at that point, you kind of have to have a plan in place and have buy-in from the community before that will really take off.
Yeah, and I would add, like, what I think the buy-in from the community is really important, because I know so many people want this, and I think collectively, if we have a committee of community members who are very avid and wanting to fundraise and stuff, we could easily raise the money to get a really nice looking facility that will bring people and be compared to and better than other communities. Just like our school stuff.
Other questions from the council? If not, I'll open it up for questions from the community. Yes.
Am I correct in understanding that the annual budgeted money for the pool is now being diverted elsewhere?
There's, so currently right now there was no revenue, so there is no, how do I say?
Yeah.
I mean, a negative budget doesn't make for a positive budget. So there has no money to be diverted anywhere else.
So there was never a certain amount of money that was budgeted for the pool, it was only what came in, that was it.
It was the revenues that came in, and anything in addition to that was provided by property tax levy.
And what we came in did not cover the cost of operating the pool, so we always negative every year.
But then that extra money came from where? For example, if you're short
Yeah.
80,000.
From property tax.
Where did it come up from?
From property tax.
Was the budget
So
itself,
it was-
there was no budgeted amount for the pool, I think is what you're asking.
Yeah.
It's a complicated because it's a part of what's called a function. And so for the parks and recreation as a total, there was a portion of property tax that is budgeted to cover all of the expenses for that function, that program. So what I can tell you, just to answer the question the best I can from the top of my head, is that on average, the city would allocate around $50,000 to $60,000 of property tax money. But the issue being is that our revenues on average only potentially was around 15,000. So in addition to that, the expenses totaled more of 120 to 130 to operate it. So there's just been ongoing deficit, which has been pulling from our general fund reserve. So it's almost something that we would have to pencil it out and show how the property tax and the function goes into versus just being able to say credits in, debits out.
I'm just wondering, whatever, as you plan ahead, whatever would normally have gone to make up the deficit or whatever had gone to parks and recs, if that can still keep coming in order to build up for future the pool. Maybe that's,
There wasn't anything coming, everything that was provided for the pool was spent on the pool plus personnel. Yeah, there wasn't any surplus, there wasn't any like positive revenue coming from it whatsoever, in fact, we were always short. And now keep in mind, that's providing for the maintenance and upgrade of the pool, but also for paying the people to work at it.
Back to your point is that it will be very difficult with restrictions on property tax revenue to continue with operation. So it'll take a lot of figuring out how we fund this.
Yeah, so the function that was applied, that was set aside for Parks and Rec included everything, the pool, the parks, correct, everything.
Yeah.
So how much of that was just parks? Parks and, yeah, for parks, how much were the parks using and how much was allocated? Cause you said it was all in the same function.
Yeah, so I wasn't prepared for that question. So that would be, again, it's dependent on that fiscal year and how much property tax the city was able to collect. And then from that, then there's a percentage that it's divided out between the bigger percentage that takes from property tax is public safety. So essentially, once we are budgeting for public safety for our police, our fire, our EMS, then there's a small percentage of that pie that has to be divided out to the library, to building inspections, and to I mean, I have a long list here. Some administration stuff, then Parks and Rec, cemetery. So what I can tell you is that with our property taxes, that let's say from 100% of what we get from property tax, we have nearly 80% that goes to public safety. So from that amount, we're left to operate all of these other programs and functions essentially at almost 20%. So what I'm trying to say is that the city has been working in a deficit where we've continued to anything that the city had built up from property tax into reserve has now been depleted because there is not enough property tax revenue that is able to come in to support all of these things.
Plus, you have to keep in mind that the current legislation now caps our ability to access property tax. See, before we could kind of keep in line, I think, with like cost of living, you know, but now we can't go beyond, what is it, 2%?
So our cap is 8-10,
8-10.
but we cannot grow more than 3%.
Okay, more than 3%.
And it's hurting towns all over.
And that's a state law.
Yeah.
We just can't. And our town can only get so much property tax within the city limits.
Yeah, and I think that's important, Kara. It's like we're talking about money coming just within our city limits, but we continue to provide recreation for everybody that lives just outside of our limit. And so
That's library, it's free, very minimal cost to use the pool, recreational.
Again, it comes back to, when, my years here, it's quality of life. Recreation is about quality of life. Over the past 10 years, given limited growth and our property tax valuations, the city of West Liberty has beautiful historic homes. But it comes at a cost of having aged inventory that does not have property tax valuations that you're going to see in some of our neighboring communities. because they've had a lot of new build and they've had that growth. But most importantly, when you're building newer homes, they have a higher valuation that you're able to receive more property tax valuation from. We absolutely would never change the beautiful and historic look of our community and our inventory. However, that's what the council is working at as far as more growth with newer homes. Unfortunately, that piece of it does not come fast enough to manage a lot of these difficulties that we're having with the current taxation or how we can levy tax.
Other questions?
Has there been any consideration of going beyond just a pool to make it some sort of like STEM technology lab, workforce development, or other sites than this particular site? Have you guys started in the process of trying to find additional locations or other? I mean, I've done quite a bit of research on grant opportunities, and there is grant opportunities if you diversify what the pool does.
Right.
I mean, there's USDA grants, there's DOT, there's Enhance Iowa. I mean, there is grants to be had, but
we're throwing that idea around about with the pool house and with the.
Yeah, I think that's a good question.
Yeah. And making that larger, because we thought, where you go in and pay, whatever that pool building is.
Bathhouse.
The bathhouse, okay.
Yeah.
And making it kind of multifunctional, like a youth center, emergency like location, for people to go to, having multiple resources, classrooms or whatever. But again, that raises the cost. What we're talking about, what Lenny's giving us is just a basic of where we have to start with.
And just to finish up, so what our staff has been tasked with right now is identifying just what we're going over with the existing. And then I think that's a good question, because then I think that is going to allow council then, as we're working through, is what can be identified to provide that quality of life. I mean, what are our options to look at? I mean, and as Councilmember McFerren was saying, one of the options that we started looking at, because we also we've identified that storm sheltering, we're limited on that. We run into with the school, I mean, we have the FEMA shelter there, but again, that shelter is limited if it's during school time. We're not, of course they're not, can't use it. You can't use it for having public and with students, And so with that said, I mean, that was where through hazard mitigation, we had started to talk a little bit about, that multi-purpose of having a storm shelter. We have a lot of use of our shelters, and maybe potentially looking at the space also being utilized for year-round, space for, shelter rentals and things like that. And so, I mean, I think that that's a good point for us to pay attention to if council, what the next steps are they direct us to do. And so, and have those conversations.
And to kind of give you an idea, so Nick in previous times had done studies on doing like a newer facility, enhancing the pool. And really the purpose of this was really to just look at what was existing. What would it cost to see if there was if it was reasonably cost effective to repair what's there and continue planning for the future. But at this time, you got to look at it from the standpoint of it's going to be pretty costly to get the pool to where you need it to be. So it's now thinking ahead and thinking what types of options, what direction does the council, the city, and not just the council, it's really the community itself that wants to go.
I think the community has good questions. I mean, we can do the work, but then it's the sustainability. And those are good questions that you have, because investing in it, then how do you sustain it? How do you keep it open? Right. There are a multiple of things that are occurring. It's not only about the facility itself, staffing the facility. We used to have an abundance of lifeguards. And most of those are students. And as you probably all know, they're very busy people during the summer months. And so we run into staffing for the purpose of, because they are busy and they have, so it limits us sometimes for our opening or how long we can be open because we're limited on staffing. But sustainability is definitely, building it, but then that's also identifying how do we sustain it? And that's why looking at diversification about what we're using the facility for, trying to create other revenues to help sustain that quality of life. But again, we haven't really dived into that yet because it was just this step first. So
But some of those things add on to staffing. That's more staffing.
that's it. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
Which is per cost.
We had a question
For
here.
the new facility, have to find a different site, or is it possible to put it on the current site?
It's not necessarily, it could be potentially placed at the current site that it
So it
is.
could be.
Yeah. Yeah, it could be. Yep.
Okay.
So, or if there's another location that would make more sense from an economic standpoint or better site selection, there's many things, access, different things that come into it, but no, I wouldn't rule out that existing
You
site.
wouldn't rule it out.
No, I wouldn't. I
wouldn't.
wouldn't rule it out.
So that's an option.
Yeah, that is an option.
Yes.
Yep.
So the water leakage that was coming out of the pool as it is could be fixed with a new facility. If we rip this out and start it over, there wouldn't be all that problem.
If a new facility has leaking, then the contractor is gonna keep coming back and back to get it fixed before the city will accept it, so.
They have to rework their earth
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
once they do that, so yeah.
We'd have to make it stronger, so it wouldn't be right.
I mean, the pool's made it 90 years. That's a good life for a pool, so.
So would it take to, if there was a concerted fundraising effort, which I don't think there's been, at this point.
Correct.
How long would it take, once that money is secured, to have the new facility built?
I-
How long is the old facility going to be sitting here deteriorating?
So, you're probably looking at least 2 years in advance. Because one, you'll have to do some planning, community engagement, get an idea of what do you want this pool to look like? What does everyone feel comfortable with the cost? Because I mean, you can build a pool for $3 million, or you can go up to $50 million where people do aquatic facilities, which I know the city's not going to go that route, but I mean, there's a wide range of what you can and can't do, and really, I know costs are going to play a big role in that. And then
Sorry, the thing I was gonna add about, so the other thing that could take a little more time is this would have to go to a referendum to be voted on. So that means that the city residents would have 60% of them would have to vote in favor of spending those dollars for the facility. So that again is a situation where the council then would have to, we either have to identify when that election can occur, or they have to identify for a special election. Because anything that is a capital improvement for our general fund over, I believe it's 350, maybe it's
400,000.
400,000 now, it has to be voted on by the taxpayers.
So
That's,
first-
what if it's donated though?
Yeah, and I should
So
have.
if the money's donated, then we wouldn't need to do that, right?
Correct. All right, I'd have to look into that.
Still have
I'd,
to.
Oh, it does.
You still have to, yeah.
So Cindy had a question and Becky had a question.
Is the Kimberly estate still tied into it?
There's no funding coming from an estate.
Okay, so it's city owned.
It is city owned.
Yes, it has been for years.
And to kind of build out the schedule, I'm at 2 years before you'd even start shoveling dirt out there. And really the biggest thing is planning that ties into the bond referendum that you have to go through with the community. You also have to go through design, which will take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, depending on the review process. And then the longest part and the most painful part is the permitting through the Iowa Department of Public Health. That will take easily 6 months to get through for a new pool facility. And so then you'd go out for bidding for a contractor. And with the pool facility, depending on the cost and everything, we may look at it from a standpoint of where you go out for requests to contractors and you bring a contractor in early on and do a different delivery method instead of a design bid build, which is where it gets designed, then it's bid, and then the city hires a contractor. You could do it where you request qualifications from contractors and they could manage it as a contractor management at risk, and they'll give the city, I'm just gonna throw out a number right now, $5 million would be the gross maximum price. And then it would be on them to have the engineering team, the city and everyone to meet that budget. And then once you get through the permitting, they'll start bidding it in packages to subcontractors. So that one's nice because then you get a contractor and they can sit there and poke holes at the engineer's design on what's not constructible and everything. So, it's a fun time, and it's actually a good process because then you get everyone on the same page and, you work together more as a team rather than going out and putting it out there, but we're a little ways from that step.
And in the meantime, what do you recommend as an engineer that you do with the current pool? And has there been any discussion? Because I live right close, as everyone knows, and I've already seen deterioration and not being taken care of. There's things strong all over inside. There's water that's pooling up on the
That's
part. And
if you want my honest opinion, and this is me coming from like coming from town and everything, I would probably not open the pool until you get something bigger, a plan long-term fix.
Understand it, but in the meantime, it's not open, it's sitting there. What safety precautions, what things should be done to?
Make sure, get it drained. You could seal it at this time. That would always help. And then really just get it cleaned out. There's not a whole lot you can do except just make sure that you're cleaning it regularly, providing maintenance if you see something. But as far as it sitting there, it's not going to hurt anything. But I would recommend sealing the cracks because anytime it rains, you're going to have that issue. And then making sure it's able to drain out eventually over time. But the other thing is that I have to look at it is sometimes having a little water in there. And I haven't looked this closely at it is a good thing because you can get pressure from the earth that can raise the pool and that can cause issues too.
That's why we need water in the winter time.
Yeah.
Is if you take pressure off there, it could your groundwater and stuff goes in, eventually freeze in, but heat your entire vessel out of the ground.
I've seen it on the deck.
Yeah, that's the drains are probably on that. So
Becky had a question.
Oh, no, I just wanted to clarify, because at one time it sounded like Lee saying it doesn't make any money, and there's no budget money. And then, so I didn't know why we would have to do a vote, but then you're saying we still have to do a vote, even though there is no money. So.
It's IO code.
And then the plan would be moving forward that you would just have 100% of it just be grant funded, nothing from the city? You would just expect all of it to come from somewhere else?
It's the additional work of sustainability.
Yeah.
It's not just about.
So then there is some money that the city is gonna put forward to.
Well,
There's no money on that side of this.
So then that would be 100% somehow grant funded or sponsored. That's what I'm trying to get at. So
every year they can budget, right?
you budget it,
So
I get the
plan.
maintenance. Yeah, so you're saying moving forward, the city will not, it's just gonna have to be funded some other way, but.
It has to be identified each budget season, as to how the pool would be funded.
But no structure
Just like the rest of the
city.
I think the biggest part, just to kind of help out here, is you need a plan first on what direction you want to go and have an idea of what those costs are, and then the council or whoever with the city at that time can see if they can put some budget to it. But at this time, there is nothing budgeted for a new pool.
It's all part of the general fund.
Yeah.
And it's split up and divided between, necessary areas that provide for the city taxpayers. So it doesn't have its own fund, if that's what you're thinking.
No, I didn't. I'm just saying that it's just like these switch around, like there is no money, there is money, there's budget line. So I'm just trying to figure out exactly what,
There's no specific
there's no, but
funds
the city,
reserve.
and what the plan is moving forward would be to fundraise, is that?
Well, I'm sure that would be part of it, but we would have to have a vote on whether or not, correct me if I'm wrong, the taxpayers would agree to basically go out and get a loan, you know, to pay for this. It's just like when you go out and get a mortgage for your house, you know, the final price is scary, but you know what you're getting in return, and that's basically what it is. And then what our taxpayer money comes to the general fund is what comes.
We'd have to do an assessment of like, would it be feasible? Because we'd have to raise the cost to get into the pool, right? Would that even be feasible for our community, with our income, you know, of our community? And like, we have a really good deal right now, what we did with, you know, family passes and things like that. It was so affordable. That's why other people from other towns would come. But we probably couldn't do that with a new pool, right? And so would it even be feasible for people to utilize it, to keep it going so that it stays open, right? Correct. Yeah, like if we found somebody who's like, yeah, we want, if we did an indoor thing and they're like, we're gonna sign a 10-year contract to give you millions of dollars so we can train year round on water rescue for the state of Iowa. That's awesome. We know we have a pool for at least 10 years, right? But yeah.
So again, I see this as step one, and now council with input from people in the community, we have to look at whether this is something we want to take on as an endeavor. If not, then what the plan is, and we have a period of years that work will need to occur. So it will be going back to the budgeting process of the city for each budget year, determining what we could do at that time.
And yeah, really the next step would be that planning process.
Yes, right, yeah. All right, are there other questions from the community?
You guys have usage details on the number of participants, like individually, like ticket sales and families, and average age demographic, so we know who to tell they're not going to have a pool for the next 2 years.
Yeah, I don't know
We
that.
don't have an analytic.
We don't, well, it's hard to tell who's in town and who's out of town.
We have Kelly, but we don't.
We have obviously people pass logs.
Yeah.
That are stored by the cabinets,
Right,
that stuff, but we are old school, right? We took cash and you just came in, that's how it was. You're only logged if it was a family pass. And we have your family, every kid's name, parents, babysitter that was on there, obviously what days you came. We also have a tally sheet of attendance at specific times when guards came in. Those numbers are.
So not that.
They should be. So that's what you got, but.
I think I have records back from the last 30 years, maybe more.
You signed up for swim lessons?
Swim lessons, pool passes, tele sheet marks, and lifeguards.
I mean, I think there's a whole generation that is not going to have had the pool, just like you had as a child. You had the access to the pool you mentioned.
Yeah, it was.
So there's a whole demographic, COVID kids that don't have that life experience, and by delaying it another 2 years or whatever it is, we're going to be in the same boat, and nobody's going to want to move here. So start generating positive news stories.
Well, and there's the thing about swim lessons for young ones and stuff, but you know, they'd have to go out of town to get their swim lessons. Yeah, because if they're putting in backdoor pools, which is what they're gonna do, they're gonna need to know how to swim.
yes.
I don't think we wanna just put it off 2 more years. We're starting the process now, but by the time we get a finished product, is what he's saying, that's how much time it's gonna take. So,
Sure, but there's not going to be a pool in town
right,
really 10 years.
well, we can't get out. We just don't have it, we have to build it.
We did it.
We have one that doesn't meet DNR requirements, so. All right, are there other questions?
I have one, and this may be getting the cart ahead of the horse, but I'm just curious. If we were to start fundraising, sometime in the near future, how would we be certain that any money raised goes specifically to the pool? And then what happens if things go wrong and we don't ever get a pool?
Well, I mean, I'll talk to the fundraising. I mean, the fundraising that I would recommend that it's not provided to the city, that it's a fundraising or an organization created outside of the city for that purpose, and that funds would not come to the city
Right.
until, those things could then be identified. That would be the first part of handling, fundraising. Again, I mean, the bigger part of fundraising is how much are we raising and what's the design and, so again, it comes back to the first step is, it's kind of I mean, it is complicated because I know it's frustrating as we can come up with a design, we can come up with the cost, but in the bigger picture, it's also coming up with, will we be able to sustain the facility and have a facility open for our community? Because at the end of the day, there's just not enough tax income. And we have no other revenue, but as Councilmember Dominguez is saying, if we identify a facility that is potential for other purposes or where you can get additional funding, then those would be a part of those exercises or steps as we're looking at it.
I think the second part of your questions dealt with what happens if we aren't able to raise the money. And this entity that agreed to take in the money then would establish what the rules are for that. And then those rules would apply.
I'd have to be part of your rules for your.
If there are no more questions, I can't remember. Do I need to have a motion on adjourning that we're just
No, you
adjourned
just call it.
because it's a work session?
Correct.
Thank you, everyone. All this information will get available to you as soon as we can, so that you can look at